Okay, we are recording with Samantha Gladish, and I guess Samantha, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Most people have this origin story with us that's different than yours, because I think from what I remember, you were the first person that ever began working with us, right? Yeah. And then at some point, Nick was freaking out because we were paying you. I don't know. It was probably $1.50 an hour. We were paying you $2.
We gave her a raise to $2.50.
Yeah, and I remember, we had never done that before, so we were scared shitless. And I remember at one point, Nick was calling me, and we were, I think we were trying to come up with ideas what can we get Sam to do? I think she's just sitting there and she's not doing anything. And this wasn't a reflection on you. It's we don't know what to tell her to, what else could she do?
I don't know if it was, no, I think it was beforehand. And I was like, what? So we're going to hire someone? What are they going to do all day? I just couldn't figure it out.
Right.
I just didn't make.
But it wasn't even 5 days a week.
I think it was three.
And it was kind of 6 hours a day. It wasn't even full days because you were in school, right? Yeah. So Sam saw, all the stories that you share about how we really just didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were trying to figure it out. Basically, you saw it all, and you can attest to the fact that we didn't really know what the hell we were doing, and we were trying to figure it out as we went.
I think one story with Sam will allow you to speak in 1 second. Okay.
Sure.
But we're excited that you're here. One story that comes to mind for me was,
are you going to be okay?
I'm going to live. That we had to mail out these envelopes. And I remember I was always licking the envelope.
Oh.
And at one point you were using, I think I walked by and I saw you using a glue stick for the envelope. And I just thought that was so brilliant. I thought, oh my gosh, you don't have to lick these envelopes? And you just looked up, you're like, yeah, you could just use these glue sticks and you would seal the envelope. And I don't know if we asked you to use glue sticks or if that came to...
That was a big breakthrough for us. That was a monstrous breakthrough in our lives.
Yeah.
That's the level we were at.
Yeah. So that was that was actually our second business breakthrough, because the first was when I was on my hands and knees on a cement floor in my basement, and my friend walked by. I think I was actually in the garage at first on that cement floor, but then quickly after in my basement, and he walked by and he saw me on my hands and knees packing these envelopes, and he's like, hey, I got an extra fold-out table at home. Do you just want a fold-out table? And I was like, oh my God, thank you. This is brilliant. I don't want to be on my hands and knees stuffing envelopes anymore. And he brought that table. I walked it from his house. And then I remember when we graduated to our first office, Sam, that's where we met you.
Yeah.
I returned the table all proudly. I walked it down the street. We're now not in my garage and basement anymore. We have an office, It was a big deal.
Totally. But, I don't even remember the glue stick envelope story.
Well, because you wouldn't, because it made perfect sense to you. You didn't need to remember that as part of your life.
Yeah, you discounted that as an unnecessary memory that you needed to store in your brain.
Very true. Yeah. Very true.
So can you catch us up about how many years? I don't know, 15 years or something like that?
At least.
What, for people who don't know you,
yes.
What is some of the journey that you've been on? Can you talk to us about all of this stuff? Because there's a lot. So can you walk us through that? How did you go down the path? What are you up to? What have you been up to? What are you up to now?
Yeah. Well, we could be here a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long story. Kind of breaking it up into some bite-sized pieces. Essentially, went from Rockstar Real Estate, which it was not Rockstar Real Estate at the time.
It was income for life inside this brokerage.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. And then I applied to nutrition school. So I wasn't in school yet, but...
didn't you go to university? Weren't you at U of T or something first?
I literally am so lost on timelines that I can't even fully remember. But I do know that I was applying to go to nutrition school, and then... so then I had left and then went to school, and I did the, whatever it was, advanced 1 year or something like that. And, that was my first journey into doing something that I really loved and was passionate about. And I know my whole family was kind of what are you going to do with this? They still don't know what I do. But basically, I will actually never forget being in the business class, which was terrible, by the way. And I remember the teacher saying, you could charge $75 an hour for your nutrition services. And I was like, what? At that time, I was just oh my God.
Mind blown.
Mind totally blown. This is so amazing. I get to make great money doing what I love to do and helping people. This is going to be amazing. And so then I remember graduating and no one came banging down my door to work with me. And so those dreams were crushed pretty quickly. And I'm like, where's the $75 an hour? And so I went on to work in health food stores. And I was doing all sorts of things. I've always kind of worn many hats. I was teaching like Pilates classes and kickboxing classes. And then I went on to work in a health food store. And then I went to manage a health food store. And then I got really tired of just being in the health food store. And then I was like, I need there's got to be something else. And then I went on to become a sales rep. So I was working as a sales rep in the health and wellness space. And it felt somewhat entrepreneurial because I got to be on the road and kind of do my own schedule. Well, sort of my own schedule. My boss would call me and I would never pick up the phone. And he would call me like 8 a.m. And I'm like, I'm sleeping at 8 a.m. Yeah. I'm not an early riser. So I went on to be a sales rep, and I basically had this 1.5 year expiry at every job because it just was not the thing that was lighting me up. And I was always kind of chasing okay, the next job is going to be the thing. The next job is going to be the thing. And then sure enough, that's when I was like, I need to do my own thing. I need to start my own business. So you had that realization just because it got old. You caught the pattern. It got really old. And I was seeing other practitioners write books and coach clients. And I could see that it was possible. And so just seeing that, I was like, okay, I know that there's something more for me here, and I don't want to be working for somebody. I don't want somebody looking over my shoulder. And I also remember this moment when he's my husband now. At the time, my boyfriend, he had surprised me with this trip to New York. And I will never forget it because I got so excited. And then I remember thinking, I'm going to have to ask for this time off. And this sucks. I'm going to have to lie because, I felt like I couldn't be honest. And I'm like, this sucks. I have to lie. And my schedule is based on this person, and they're dictating my schedule and my travel. And that really sucks. So that was also a moment where I was like, yeah, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. So it did take another 3 years before I officially dove into my business, but I got fired. So I was like, I have no choice and there's no plan B.
You got fired after the trip to New York?
I got fired twice, actually.
Same place? They hired you back? Oh, no. Okay, different place.
I was going to be same guy. Okay. So he fired you, hired you back, fired you again.
No, it was, two different companies. The first one, they didn't really fire me. They were selling the company. They were making all these changes and they just let a bunch of us go. And that was great. It was on to the next thing for me. And then in that last one, essentially the same thing had happened and they were just letting people go. And I will never forget my boss at the time, who's an awesome human being. And he had called me and was like, I need to see you this Thursday. Can we meet? And, this office off of this, whatever, and, this street in this area. And I'm like, are you flying in to fire me? I said it on the phone and he just didn't really say anything. And so I just knew. And I remember walking.
He still flew in though?
Yeah, he did.
Might as well just fire her at that point.
It made no sense. And so I remember going to the office and knocking on the door, and he opens the door and he just kind of puts his head down. And I had the biggest smile on my face. I'm like, you're firing me. I'm like, this is so exciting because I wanted to leave, but I didn't know how. And so it was just this really great moment. And then I actually celebrated that night because I was like, this was the beginning of the universe doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And then the rest was
That's cool.
So how long ago was that?
11,
okay,
12 years ago.
And then, because this is a big journey. Starting your own business, as you now know, is a bit of a shit fest. So how do you go down this path? What did you start a website and say, now I'm a consultant, or what did you do?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people start with a website. And
did you charge $75 an hour at first? Was that the first thing you did?
I actually don't even remember what I was charging in those beginning stages, to be quite honest. Even before I officially sort of had my business, I was getting random clients here on the side and I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure, yeah.
And I had no idea I was charging. I remember creating meal plans for people and putting it on this big construction paper and so they could stick it up on their I had no idea what I was doing. It was so messy. And so going back to your question, how did you start? What was the thought? What did you start? Right. What did you do? Yeah, so at this point I actually started to invest in business and marketing and learning online marketing. And so I feel like, I don't know if you're familiar with Marie Forleo and B School.
Oh, I know that name. Oh yeah, I know both these names, but I don't know them in detail.
Yeah, so it was kind of like this very popular program at the time, and I don't know if it still is, but that was kind of like my segue into just really learning online marketing and lead generation. And every time I think about list building, your name, Tom, is in the back of my head.
I've done what I needed to do.
Still to this day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, build your list. Build your list.
And at the time, like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Let's get on track, man. Can I just get another glue stick?
I'm glad you were thinking that.
I just need another glue stick. Have these guys heard of email? Why are we mailing packages out, in the year 2007 or 8 or whenever that was?
Totally.
Which we still do.
Yeah.
And apparently we send an email or two here or there sometimes as well.
Yeah. We supplement with email. So now you go into this and you learn about marketing.
Yes.
And this gives you the idea to then start this, holistic wellness business?
Yeah, I had actually purchased the Holistic Wellness URL like years prior. That just came to me as kind of like a download, and I was like, this is the business name. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but this is it. And then I started to just understand about like online business and coaching people online and creating online programs. And so I also started to like really network and kind of go out to different events that were also marketing events and just like really diving into that world, because I had spent so many years and so much time and money investing in like certification after certification and getting all these fancy initials after my name, thinking that was the thing that would make me successful, which is not the case. And so I started to really shift that into learning marketing. And so I did have a website that I put up. It was so all over the place and just really messy at the time. But I had just started to get on Facebook. And so just like posting and just sharing content and information. And it was very organic back then, of just like friends referring people and getting some of those first few clients that were like outside of Canada. And like, that was really exciting. And
why is it, this is like slightly off topic, but something you just said, I get so confused. So, because almost everyone I know, us included, is like, you think the certification is what matters.
Yeah.
And it's normal. But so why? Is it just
you want someone to appoint you the expert?
No, I know, but then you always miss out. So you think that someone's just going to knock on your door because you're the certified expert, whether or not you're waiting for someone to anoint you or not. You still don't have any thoughts into like, once I have that certification, how does anyone find me? Until you've left school like we did, and then you start looking elsewhere and you're like, oh, like none of this stuff is ever taught in any certification programs and any, it's always outside of it.
Yeah.
Even in like business and marketing programs in school, a lot of the course material I've seen is not about on like lead generation, list building. It's about brand awareness and how to develop this, which doesn't, like, that's good once you have a company, but that doesn't get you off the ground.
No.
Right? That it always amazes me.
Schools like taught in the era of IBM, where they're training people to go into a big corporation and play a small role in that big corporation. And then the professors come from a lot of that kind of background as well. Like, how many people have really started a business like Sam has started that then will go teach, hey, here's what you really need to know. It's just this kind of incestual thing where it's like there's big corporations, the schools match to what the big corporations kind of need. So like what they're teaching in marketing.
Yeah, it's really teaching them to be a
corporate kind of pawn almost. And it's, I think, a little unintentional.
Right.
But it's just the system produces this.
It's true.
There's so many people who really kind of go out and try to figure out how to get a customer. Even that language, when I try to tell people like, hey, you have to understand how to get a customer. You see people kind of like, oh, I don't even understand what you're talking about.
Because no one you don't think about that.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
So then how did you, and that's interesting that you bring that up. So then, Sam, how did you figure out you had to make that leap? That was going to that B school and taking some of that, investing in your own education?
And it's funny because to this day, I actually never finished that program because I made it kind of a few modules in and had quickly realized I need like a human being to speak to. Like I actually need a coach. And so then I went and I hired a business coach, and that was a big game changer for me because sitting with somebody who could really take this like 30,000 foot view over the things that I was doing and help to direct me really helped to support me. So started my email list and building the email list and sending out emails every week.
How did you know which business coach to hire? you had been following somebody and kind of got some trust?
There was just kind of like a recommendation, and somebody that kept coming up in sort of my orbit, and other people had referred, and so it just was the right fit, and also like financially was the right fit too. And and so they were really pivotal in like really helping me learn the ins and outs of online marketing.
Because I think that's kind of how it was. We were similar, really, because I think it was, we got introduced to some marketing concepts, and then once you understand that is the key to almost any business, like, if you know how to build a list and how to get people to trust you and respond to you, that is all the key ingredients. And I think that's what gave me confidence to quit, because then I quit with like a mortgage. Aiden was about 4, Sienna was about 10 months. And for me, I thought, it's not just about getting your real estate license. You know, if you can get someone to knock on the door or send you a text or ring the phone and come in, that's kind of pure freedom. And that gave me the confidence, I think, to quit. So it's weird. I think we all come to that in different ways. Sam had to get fired.
Twice.
Yeah. It wasn't 3 times you're out. After twice, she kind of caught on. Okay, I'm off on my own here. Totally. So you hire the business coach, and then the business kind of starts to begin the seeds of flourishing.
Yeah, essentially. And I was using social media. I was building my email list. Now this is going back, I guess, 9 years ago. So organic reach was very different back then. Yeah. Now it's a whole different ball game, and paying for traffic and whatnot. And it can be expensive for sure. It was really different back then. And so I was wearing the hat of being the nutrition coach and being the marketer in my business. And so I was doing all of the things and setting up all the tech and all the automation, all the landing pages, and doing the email and designing things, and then also coaching clients and creating the protocols and doing all of it. And then started dabbling a little bit into Facebook ads, which are, again, like totally different now than they were, 8 or 9 years ago. But I remember like buying this Facebook ad training, and I would just like watch 2 minutes, pause, play. Okay, go back.
Yeah, spend 2 hours trying to implement 2 minutes, like, oh my gosh, okay. What did he say? What did she say? Rewind, rewatch.
It's exactly what I did. So I really was like self-taught a lot of these things, and all the tech and the automations and everything.
So doing everything you just described is a recipe for burnout.
Yes.
Did you hit burnout or
Totally.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you change your time management skills after that?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't, as I'm sure you guys have experienced, like it doesn't feel like burnout, because you're just building your thing, and it's so exciting. And so it did get to a point where I was like, I need to now delegate. And so I was getting really busy and was getting a wait list, and then started to increase my prices. And so I started to delegate, and I hired my first hire, and she's still with me to this day, and my content director. And so she came on board and was kind of handling some of the back end stuff with like the tech and the automations and things like that. So that was really helpful. And also I one of the biggest things I learned too, like when I first started, I was charging like for a one-off consult, and then hoping people would pay for like a follow-up or would actually want the follow-up. And you can't grow and scale a business that way. And so then I was like, I need a package in place where it's a longer term commitment and it's a higher price. And that's what actually leads people through transformation. And so, that was pivotal in my business, because that also helped me to leverage more of my time, even though it was still one-to-one. And then I also started to create like online courses so that I can truly leverage my time, where I don't have to coach people one-to-one.
Okay. So on that point, when you started to charge for more from people up front, in business, a lot of people have imposter syndrome where they don't feel worthy to make that ask. Okay. How did you overcome that? I'm just going to assume you had some of that. Yeah. How did you overcome that to have the confidence and conviction to ask for more business and for more money from customers? What was that evolution like?
Yeah. So, it started with undercharging. And I think that there's a lot of value in the undercharging, because you quickly learn the time and the energy and all the resources and everything that goes into supporting a client. And so, if you're starting out and I see this all the time with the students that I coach, is like, okay, I'm just going to charge, $150 for a 1-hour session. And I'm like, sure, go do that. Sign on 10 people and report back and tell me how that goes. And that was the process for me. It was like, I had to just go through it and I quickly realized like, there's so much time and energy going into this. It's not just being on a call with somebody for 1 hour. It's all of the work that comes after and email follow-ups and the questions and all of the things. And so that really started, that was really the starting point, was just this like realization, like my time is really valuable here and I need to charge accordingly. Other things like what's going on in the industry and like what's the industry charging. Also the fact that I had a coach who could kind of see these gaps and these blind spots, who could really point
give you
out.
the confidence.
To push you along the path a little bit, right? Even if you're kind of have those ideas, you almost just need that encouragement to say, like it's a good, well, you see it now. Sure. Now you see it from the coaching side.
Yes.
So you see it, well, you're playing that role, right?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And also, sitting down and actually mapping out like, what is your revenue goal? What do you really want to make? And let's break down what I would need to be charging and how many clients to bring through the door to make that possible. Then you can, like, just working backwards. That was also a big eye opener for me to charge more.
And then you do this for some time, you grow this business, and now because you've learned so much, you're helping other business owners get through some of this stuff themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what do you see as the number one hurdle that most people have? Is it that the imposter syndrome of not being able to charge what they are worth?
That's often a big one. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. What else just comes to mind though, when I throw that out there?
Yeah, there's, I don't know enough, so I need to go back to school and get more certifications and courses. Like that's a big one. That's such a big one. I will often hear from students, oh, I'm not ready for your mentorship yet because I just enrolled in this program, this course, and this nutrition course, and this one finished in the fall. And it's just like,
I think some people use that as a crutch.
For sure. For sure. They're just hiding because they know once you have to truly step into that business role, like you're front and center. People are hiring you. And now
fear of rejection
your
from
visibility.
Doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. The fear of rejection is huge. So there's all sorts of things that I see.
One thing that we've always shared with people is when someone asks me, I'm like, look, you don't need to be a 10 out of 10 to help someone. If you're a 3 out of 10,
right,
you can help anyone that's a 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Like it's simple, or whatever level. And I think sometimes that's what we all have been through. Sometimes there's like, well, I'm not really an expert at that, but you don't need to be. You can help other people. Or if you're not, then you just find someone that can help them in that, whatever the role that is.
And you might be able to serve people better because someone who's in your example, they're a 3 out of 10 in their eyes in that subject matter. They're going to speak about that subject matter using different words and different phrases to the people who are a 0 to 2 out of 10. And it might resonate better. Totally. Whereas someone who's been in the job or industry or career or niche for, a million years, they might be a 9 out of 10. And the language and words that they're going to use might not resonate with the potential customers who are the 0, 1, or 2
That's a really good point.
So like it just changes and evolves over time.
But that's in like any industry. Like
in any industry.
Yeah. Yes.
It applies to everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you overcome your fear of, you started a podcast, you're putting yourself out there. It was just the coach that kind of pushed you to say, okay, put yourself more and more out there, because then starting a podcast, I don't know where that came in, but that's another level of exposure where you're kind of exposing some of your thinking and who you are as a person to a wider audience. You were okay with doing that, or was that another big leap for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely uncomfortable, for sure, a big leap. I think at that point, I didn't have a coach. I had that coach maybe for the first year or so in my business. And then as my business started to grow and I had momentum with consistent clients and selling online programs, then it was like, okay, like what is the next thing? And that's when the podcast just kind of naturally came to be. And at the time it was called Healthy Hormones for Women. It was named after a program, an online program that I ran. So I just kind of linked the two. And
the name now is so much better.
Yeah. Wellness Witch.
The Wellness Witch.
I love it.
I love the Wellness Witch.
That's
a great name. That's a great name.
Yeah, thanks.
Where'd the witch come from?
Yeah.
Is this something your boyfriend said to you?
No, no. It actually did come in a plant medicine ceremony.
Did it?
Yes.
The Wellness Witch.
What kind of plant medicine? Ayahuasca?
Yes.
Our mom went down to Brazil to do ayahuasca. She went to at that point.
Mom did?
Yeah. I wish I remembered how old she was.
Before it was cool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Because how old? This must have been at least 10 years ago.
Oh, God. No, yeah. She
probably
like 2007-ish.
It was, about 15 years ago. So it was like before, I had never heard of it before that's when we started looking into it.
Yeah.
And she flew down to Brazil on her own. So she was, mid-60s, I guess.
Yeah,
she was mid-60s. She decided to fly down to the Brazilian rainforest because she found what, at the time, through her research, was a really good shaman.
Yeah.
Shaman, is that what I'm saying? And and she went and she had a great experience. She had other experiences after, which, led her to believe that he really was a good shaman. And
because one of the other ones was like some illegal ceremony that was happening in Collingwood, Ontario.
Something like that. Yeah,
Some shaman came up here and he did something, and somebody had a bad trip of some sort, and the guy ran out of whatever facility they were doing it into the streets, and the cops had to get him, and then they shut the whole thing down. And our mom was there, and we were like, "Awesome! Are you getting arrested?" Like, our 69-year-old mother at some like illegal. Whatever it was, ayahuasca shaman.
So did you travel to do it, or did you do it?
No, I did it here in Ontario, which, can't share where. But
I'm not asking. It's not asking.
Maybe Sam was in a jail cell with her mom at some point.
Awesome.
That's cool though. That's cool.
I love that your mom did that.
So, and then on that, you brought up, just because we're talked about hormones there, the Wellness Witch podcast, that's all about, is it women's health or everyone's health? Like, is there a niche to women's health with it or no?
Yeah. I mean, primarily I do talk about
But you naturally talk
health.
About everything.
Yeah. So, healthy hormones for women, at that time, being very immersed in the world of hormones, of course, and working with women one-to-one, it just made sense to title that the podcast. But of course, I evolved and things shifted, and I wanted to talk about more things. I wanted to talk about plant medicine on the podcast, and spirituality and business and just, well-being and all of that. And so then it was just over a year ago that I decided, okay, like, I don't just want to feel boxed into the hormone conversation. And then I expanded it out. So I called it the Wellness Witch.
Yeah, cool. I have 2 or 3 times I think I've known that my hormonal balance has been off, and holy shit, does that fuck with you pretty badly.
Yeah.
And it's taken me months to kind of like a reset to get out of that. And like my body's out of whack, my digestion's out of whack, my skin is out of whack. Like it's a horrible, for me, it's really bad. Like it's a bad situation. I guess for everybody.
Once you reset it, like once you know
how it feels.
And then you reset it, you're just like, wow, this is what you can feel like.
Yeah.
It's like, it's night and day.
I remember at one point when I think I was going through an episode of burnout in our business. Mm-hmm. And
Which one?
I think it was 2 or 3. At one point, I think I told Nick, forget this rock star thing. You have it. I'm not continuing with this business. Yeah, I think it was in our Burlington office. And that
I probably said, screw you. I don't want you. I don't want it.
Take it. No, you can't pull that card on me. You take it. And thank God we got through that. That's just in a moment of despair. Like we both love the business, and it's sad, but that's what happens. And I was like burnt out. Yeah. But I remember that was a time I had 2 naturopathic doctors really helped me out. The first lady was just explaining, I think she used the word, she did like a live blood analysis on me, and she's like, oh, you're yeasty. You're like naturally yeasty. And I'm like, okay, I never really anticipated that as my diagnosis. Yeah. But it actually really helped me, because I learned if I have too much bread and wine, I just get yeasty, and it kind of throws me out of whack. Totally. So I now learn like, oh, I can enjoy myself for a few months and like really load up on the bread and wine. But if I do it for a long enough time, it's really going to kind of screw me up. And then another time, so that helped, clear things up. She put me on like a no sugar diet or something. And I think I told her, I said, well, I can still have dark chocolate, right? And she leaned into me. She goes, what don't you understand? No sugar. And I was like, holy shit, she scared the shit out of me. So I did it, and it really helped me. And then another time I was burnt out, and Dr. Cowan, another naturopathic doctor, he took my hormones. You know that test we did? Was that the spit test or whatever?
Yeah.
And at that time I was drinking for about 3 years, a lot of coffee. I never drank coffee, with tons of coconut oil and tons of butter. But like I was putting 6 tablespoons of butter into.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And for the first 6 months.
Excessive.
Yeah. For this first 6 months, it was
everything
awesome.
Tom does will be a little excessive once he likes something. Yeah.
And then, and I remember walking upstairs, and this was another burnout. I always end up at these doctors during burnout phases.
For sure.
And I was walking up to his office, and he heard me coming up, and I guess he had already had the hormone analysis or results. And he's like, "How are you feeling?" And I go, "Yeah, pretty good." He goes, "I don't think so. Sit down." And he showed me my cortisol levels, and everything was out of whack. And he had to get off the coffee for a while. And I'm like, "No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I love my coffee."
Yep.
But then you
when I saw that much fat intake in one person in that amount of time, I'm like,
oh my God.
Because, way back when I first started working out, I was working out.
He couldn't believe it, by the way, when I told him how much fat I was having for so long.
Well, I worked out at a Gold's Gym, so I started exercising from like the bodybuilding side of things, where it was always just like chicken, tuna, you know what
broccoli,
I mean? Yeah, all that. That was the diet that you had to follow. Like olive oil, they're like, well, that's fat. Like you don't want that because it's fat, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I look at Tom, I'm like, if one person can ingest that much fat, and I mean, you're staying lean, I'm like, I think, all those years I was definitely wrong about what I was doing.
And I also learned that I can process fat really well.
Yeah. So I was going to actually say, genetically, you could probably...
I can process the fat, which I've come to realize that I can't tell every human, hey, you should do 6 tablespoons of butter in your coffee too. Anyway.
Just think, go to the standard heart doctor in like a medical building and see what he says about that.
My God.
Yeah.
So with your hormone practice and dealing with women, is there like one common thing that you can tell someone listening to this to get checked out, or I don't know, think about? I just know you've dealt with it a lot, and I know it's difficult to generalize.
For sure.
But is there 1 or 2 tips you can give someone who's kind of struggling with that, who kind of feels out of whack?
Totally. So I would actually really scale it back and dive into minerals first, and that actually goes for everybody, because your minerals are the spark the spark plug, and your hormones can't communicate to each other, or your cells can't communicate to each other unless you have minerals. So that's the first place to start. You need to get the mineral balance. So like
enough salt?
Yeah, sodium, potassium, copper, iron, calcium, magnesium, it all matters. So you can actually just do a hair tissue mineral analysis, where you just basically cut different spots of your head and get enough hair, and then you ship it off, and that's where you actually have the most concentration of minerals.
Do I still have enough hair to do this, or barely? Maybe on the side?
Probably
on the side here?
I won't say where else you could grab the hair from. But
so then, and you can do that in Canada? We ship it off here?
Oh yeah, we do it. So one of the coaches on my team, that's one of the our programs that we offer. And the minerals is really, really important, because, for example, like vitamin D, we hear across the board, everybody should supplement with vitamin D. And the purpose of vitamin D is to actually help the gut, the intestines, absorb calcium. And so if you have really high calcium and you're taking loads of vitamin D, well, that's not a good thing. You're taking that calcium and it's actually going, it's way too much. You're bumping up the calcium, you're lowering the magnesium, which is involved in detoxification and hormonal health. It's helpful for sleep, for anxiety, but that magnesium is also needed to usher the vitamin D into the cell. So it's all very connected. And so what happens is we dive into the hormone testing. First is typically where most people think to start. And this was definitely my thinking and my mentality back in the day too, was okay, your hormones are off, let's do hormone testing. And then what I often see, and I've been through this story myself, is you do hormone testing, you get the interpretation, you see what's off, you take said protocol and supplements, and then 6 months go by and you kind of end up in the same spot. Back to your naturopath, take the hormone testing, take the supplement, and it's you get a little bit ahead, but you really just end up in the same spot 6 months down the road.
So is it digestive to focus on first?
It's just minerals.
Just the minerals. Get those straight.
Minerals is going to play a role in thyroid, adrenal, blood sugar, digestion, energy, sleep, all of it.
Guys and women, both.
Both, 1,000%. Yeah,
wow.
1,000%.
Is it just because people, not just because, but because I know there's other factors like our lifestyle, especially when it comes to adrenals and stuff like that. But it feels like to me, from the people I talk to when they talk to me about any health, or I'm not a certified person in it, but they're just hey, so what do you do? Just out of curiosity. When I ask them what they do, I find 90% plus of people are eating just a lot of processed crap.
Totally.
Is that's what you found in your
100%?
Yeah, it amazes me the amount of people that just don't eat fresh food. And I know like there's time constraints for some people and there's costs, especially now. Like
for sure,
you want to go buy a steak, well, you're going to pay for it. Like it's pricey. Like I get it, but there's just it's like,
well, I think in everyone's defense, if you're busy earning a living and running around and you're kind of see a sign that says healthy whole grain cereal.
Right.
And you're like, well, I think I'm doing the right thing. Or am I not? I grabbed the cereal. Yeah. I load it up. You might have lactose intolerance. You load it up with milk. You think you're doing something smart. And you're, like for me, I was like a cereal hound. Right. I was like, oh my God, cereal. And I thought it was like healthy and stuff. And for me, I know everyone's different, but for me, that was like the wrong thing to be eating.
Yep.
But I just think it sounds so obvious because you've been naturally really good at this. And Sam, I think you obviously have been good at this, but I've been less good at this initially. I just didn't know. I'm like, I thought granola bars, like, I don't know, coated with chocolate, even better.
Yeah.
Great. Like I'll have some of these granola bars and that's healthy. Yeah. Like I never really thought to go to the outside of the grocery store. You know that analogy is always go to the produce. Don't go on the inner aisles, go to like the produce and the meats and stuff on the outside.
It's like half of the outside because the other half is like frozen foods, ice cream, and it's French fries. It's like you could stay there and still do lots of damage.
It's so true.
But I don't know. You're right. I know everyone's busy. I don't know where it comes from. It's just so sometimes I feel like the most basic change can have the biggest difference for people.
So and so on that, so the minerals are the biggest thing for hormones. And then how does somebody know what is an adrenal reset? And how would somebody know if they need an adrenal reset?
Yeah, so the minerals are the most important thing for all of it.
Okay.
Bottom line, especially hormones. And then with the adrenals specifically,
which is producing all hormones?
So your adrenals are primarily, many of us understand cortisol and how that's like quote unquote the stress hormone, and it gets a really bad rap because it's called the stress hormone, but you need healthy amounts of cortisol or you would basically die. So it's not about having too high or too low. You just want, essentially the right amount of it, right? So I think it's safe to say that many of us are under a lot of stress, but there's like the stressors that we don't really think about. So there's more of the obvious stressors of work and finances, bills, kids, family, like all that kind of stuff, right? But then there's the stressors of under eating, the stressors of over exercising, of not getting enough sleep, of constant busy brain. And, I know this sometimes happens for me where it's like, okay, I'm going to, take an hour and like watch some Netflix or something like that and chill out. And then I can't because I've got my phone with me and I'm like, oh, I should send this email. Oh, wait, I should respond to this person. And literally I will get through 2 minutes and 30 seconds of a show because I'm sitting there constantly like go, and that's a stress. Like you are in constant sympathetic mode. And so if this is your everyday, then it's time for, an adrenal reset. Mm-hmm. And so, and a reset, what I just call it, is just essentially something that's short term and it's actually focusing on nourishment, eating enough food. It's having healthy sleep boundaries because sleep is so essential. If you're not sleeping, you're not healing. And if you're not sleeping, you are actually going to drive up that cortisol. And then what's also going to happen is you're going to drive up your insulin. And both cortisol and insulin are fat storing hormones. So you're going to drive those up. So I'm pretty sure many of us have, we've had those 2 or 3 nights in a row where we just haven't had great sleep. And I'm sure the last thing you're thinking is, I just want a kale salad. Like you're probably not saying that. You're like, give me the pizza. I want a glass of wine.
Where's that donut? Who put that donut away? Totally. Where's that donut?
Totally. You're really craving like carbohydrates and sugar because you need that fuel to keep going. And carbohydrates is a whole other thing because I think so many of us have feared it for so long. Carbs aren't bad. No, there's no bad, macronutrient, protein, fat, carbohydrates. You need them all. It's just everybody tolerates carbohydrates differently. Your activity level will determine that as well in terms of how much you can tolerate. Stage of life, like a pregnant woman is probably going to need more carbohydrates. So there's so many factors to keep in mind. And lastly, another piece I'll add here too is like intermittent fasting, which is like such a big trend. And it's not that I'm anti-fasting, but again, because most people are in that sympathetic state, and now you're limiting your eating window and minimizing more calories, that's just a metabolic stressor. So many of us just need to eat food and eat consistently and eat enough of like just really good food, and you'll start to feel better. It's actually not that complicated.
It's hard to chill out though. Like, I mean, you can kind of fix the eating. You do feel so much better when you're eating right.
Here's what I found. Anytime I've done, so the few times that I've gone through looking at my cortisol levels and tried to kind of adjust those, or even if it's like productivity stuff. So in the office, and I'm like, I'm a little bit disorganized, so I'm getting pissed off. And I'm like, I got to fix this. So I put in a better system for myself. I'm getting more stuff done. Instead of because basically all the stressors that you listed are basically like, my every day.
Yeah.
All of them every day. And I find as soon as I feel better, so I was talking to Dr. Cowan, I forget, a few months ago, I was like, yeah, man, I'm on fire right now. Like, I'm feeling great. I go, the problem is anytime you do something, you tell me to change something that makes me feel better, I just do more. I'll run myself into the ground even more.
Right.
And he's like, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, but that's what I do. It's great.
That's
like,
Nick.
Now I feel better, so I can work out harder and put more stress on my body.
Right.
And so I'm definitely
and if anyone who's an A-type personality, if you hear that sleep is, if you're not sleeping, you're not healing, as you said, it's difficult to convince yourself to get more sleep, because when we started this business, it was all about getting stuff done. And I needed those extra hours.
Totally.
To create momentum, as you know, from a business, it takes time. And then to kind of convince myself that, oh my gosh, I will give up a few hours, an extra 90 minutes to get this extra 90 minutes sleep has really benefited me, especially the last few years. But it's a tough thing because you're trading off time, and that extra 90 minutes, that's time that maybe I'm not reading anymore, or I have to find another time for that. And it's a weird trade-off. It can be difficult for A-type people, I think, especially.
Totally. Yeah.
What do you think about this, the efficiency of sleep versus the length of sleep? And I'm asking specifically, I see you have an Oura ring on.
Yeah.
So I'm asking specifically because I know between Tom and I, so he might sleep longer than I do, but I'll get either just as much or often more deep sleep than he will. And it's still a good chunk of REM sleep as well.
You're trying to convince yourself you don't need as much sleep.
No, it's just something I've been thinking.
Totally.
It's just been something I've been thinking about recently, right? Because I will operate decently off I feel okay off the amount of sleep I get. But I can only do it for so many days. So I know it's not the right amount, but for a few days, I actually feel totally fine. But then I know sometimes I just need a little bit more to recharge. And I'm just curious. I don't actually know.
Let's hear what Sam says.
Okay, so I'll answer that question just one second. But I actually want to go back because you made this comment about like doing more and like sometimes you're on fire and just like go. Like we don't actually realize that we can become addicted to cortisol and adrenaline. Like it's a very addictive.
Oh, I know. 100%.
So, right? Like many people might be in this phase where they're like, I'm not really getting enough sleep, or I'm really not eating enough, but I'm on fire and I'm doing all the things and I got all this energy. It's like, it's actually not really energy. It's just cortisol and adrenaline surging through your body that you become like, so it gives you a high.
Whatever gets released after a good workout, I'm 100% addicted to. Yeah. And instead of addressing the addiction, I feed it. I just keep feeding. I'm like, what should I do today? Well, I haven't had worked out, so I need that. I need my fix. So then I go and I work out.
Right.
So that's now a choice.
Yeah.
So I'm like someone that is an addict and like happy to be an addict so far.
Totally.
So I don't know. I'm not saying it's good.
Totally.
I'm just open to it.
You're racking up like debt. Right.
Yeah.
You're racking up debt. And at some point, like, because you're on like the up and up and up now.
The
bill collector comes.
It's going to come. Yeah. It's going to come crashing down for sure. And it's not a good feeling.
Boy.
Yeah.
So you've seen this pattern.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think many of us have experienced it, myself included. And again, going back to like the intermittent fasting, right? It's like, it's a high. Many people then will have their caffeine at that time because it suppresses their appetite. And it's just like you are just living off of these like caffeine gives you that adrenaline surge. So again, you're just living off of these stress hormones and it just gives you a high. And
so what about his question then on quantity versus quality of sleep?
Yeah. So basically, if you can get to bed if you are sleeping between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's when you're going to have the most restorative sleep. So if I went to bed at 10 p.m. and I woke up at 5 a.m. versus somebody who went to bed at like midnight and woke up at like 9, I'll feel way better than that person, or I'll have more restorative deep sleep, REM sleep, than somebody who went to bed at midnight. Because by the time you end up like really falling asleep to get into those sleep stages, it's just not enough time. So that 10 to 2 a.m. window is like the most ideal for sure. And then it's just also looking at factors in terms of like alcohol intake or caffeine intake, because all of these things.
And for me, part of the reason I won't get deep sleep is if I have to stop eating about 7 p.m., like a full 3 hours before, because I've just measured it with the Oura Ring. If I eat after 7, I just don't get as much deep sleep as if I stop. And the only thing that I can figure out is that my digestive system is working and I'm not getting the deep sleep. But if I stop eating at 7 p.m., my deep sleep goes way up.
That's interesting, because normally, and do you wake up in the middle of the night at all?
Not too much.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes.
And so like that's probably a system and a strategy that totally works for you, because obviously everybody is so unique. But like most of the women I've coached over the years, they are falling asleep, but they're not staying asleep, and they're often waking in the middle of the night. And that's typically your blood sugar. And so this whole idea of like, don't eat before bed, it can actually be very helpful to have a protein and a carbohydrate before bed.
How much before, like for
like maybe an hour-ish?
Got it.
Yeah, because that protein and carb will sustain your blood sugar. So it's interesting because in one of the group programs that I run on the nutrition side, one of the women, she wears an Oura Ring, and her sleep has been terrible. And I was like, eat a bedtime snack. And she just, and
it's helping her.
Yeah. And she's looked at me with like,
wow.
I have 3 heads. Like, really? All these years I told not to eat before bed. I'm like, no, eat a bedtime snack. And her sleep has just been like phenomenal. Just that one little tweak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird how it's all so different.
Yeah. And how those things take hold.
Yes.
Like, don't eat right before bed. Like that is just this thing that has taken hold, that everyone's like,
oh my God.
Hey, like I'm going to go to bed. I can't eat now.
Yeah.
No matter what. Was that a thing? I missed that memo.
It's huge.
I was eating before bed all the time.
Oh, I eat before bed all the time for the exact same reason. Is I find that if I don't, I work out first thing in the morning. So I like to be fasted, because after, that I just feel better when I work out that way. So I don't eat or drink anything, which is weird. I know I don't drink water or anything in the morning. I just go start working out.
Crazy.
But I found that if I feel hungry at night, having food right before bed will give me much better sleep, and I'll feel better in the morning. I don't wake up then hungry, wanting to eat before I go work out. Right. So
I should clarify. I can only do that if I'm eating properly, where I don't feel hungry before bed. If I feel hungry before bed, it's not going to work. So I have to eat enough protein.
Yeah.
And if I have to have, some carb, whatever I need for whatever I'm doing, I need to eat really well. Then it works. If I'm hungry and I'm like, I'm not going to eat, because it's like before bed, no, my sleep's not good. So if I'm eating properly and I stop eating, for me, that's my magic formula.
Yeah.
It just increases, because my deep sleep will be so low. Like I've showed Nick the stats on this before. Before it was the Whoop band, now it's the Oura. Like it's ridiculously low.
So I'm curious, are you a mouth breather?
I think maybe.
That's probably why.
And so how do I fix that?
Yeah, wear mouth tape at night.
Come on, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. And like,
psycho.
Not like
It's
this.
completely psycho.
Yeah, wear it like
a zipper.
X.
Does it have at least a zipper where I can kind of just, Jesus.
Yeah, so.
Like duct tape?
Basically, I forget.
No, I'll do it. I'll put it on
No.
you.
Damn, I totally respect you. I'm not doing
Flat
that.
out no.
I totally respect this, and it's probably working. I'm not doing it. No way. No way.
You wear it like an X.
Yeah.
Why? What would that? So then,
Okay,
if you breathe through your nose, what does that change?
Yeah. So if you're a mouth breather, essentially, so numerous things are happening. Just like how you're expelling your carbon dioxide is going to impact your deep sleep. Nose breathers are way more healthier. Studies show longevity, like health, longevity, and aging, and all of that. But also dental health. It's like a massive thing. So if you're a mouth breather, you're drying out your mouth and your saliva can't circulate to protect your gums and your enamel. And so you'll have way more plaque buildup and more cavities. I've been a nose breather my whole life. It just sounds so weird saying that, but I've been a nose breather my whole life, and I never had a cavity until like my mid-20s. And then I was like, what? I had my first ever cavity. And it was some things I had to change with like fats in my diet and things like that. But then as I started to dive into that, I was like, why didn't I have a cavity all these years? Like, what was that about? And then I started diving deeper into like breath work and recognizing that, it was because I'm a nose breather.
You probably breathe through your nose because you'd know it if you have a dry mouth.
I don't really get cavities, but maybe I am a mouth.
Or it's just like maybe I'm a combo. Night, but it could be a combination.
I'm a combo.
For sure. But definitely mouth breathing.
I'm not doing the tape. There's got to be another way.
You can kind of like retrain. You can retrain your system to really
take a picture.
On.
There's nothing I'm doing. I'm never doing that. 100% never doing that.
There are people who mouth tape while they work out, and I have no idea how
that's
to do
tough.
That is, I don't think I could do that.
I don't think I was scared really of anything, but that's scary. Like, honestly, I've thought about this for a long time. I'm not scared of almost anything, but that just scared me.
That is hilarious.
Well, closing a hole that I need air intake. Maybe I am a mouth breather. Yeah. Jeez, you made me think about something new here. Yeah. But I've always thought I'm just not scared of anything. I don't know why. Yeah. It's just been a thought I've always had.
Has there been a lot of crossover between your business working with women in health into the working with, and what's the clients that you're working with on the business side of things? Is it kind of is it focused on women again, or is it entrepreneurs like startups? Is it people that kind of have something it's looking to grow?
Yeah. So primarily wellness practitioners, majority women come through our program. We have definitely had men come through the program as well, but our marketing probably speaks more to women. So definitely wellness practitioners, coaches, anyone kind of in the health and wellness space. So we've had, like naturopaths, we've had life coaches. There's been kind of the one-offs where we've had like a lawyer who wanted to create an online program so she can help students pass the LSAT, or, an artwork teacher who wanted to like create a program for like moms and their kids to do like artwork together. So it's just been some one-offs like that, but because ultimately all the same rules sort of apply with building your online business is like, you all need to do lead gen and do list building and copywriting and social media. So.
Oh, that's cool. And then so they're coming out of school in a similar situation probably as you.
Yes.
Looking around saying, hey, my teacher told me I can make $75 an hour and no one's there to make me $75 an hour. And then they go research, end up potentially finding you like the way you found good.
And nobody thinks to invest in themselves, their health. Very few people think that. And then to invest in your own business building, most people don't think about doing that, I think that's the biggest thing. We stopped counting after about 350,000, I think, on mentors and like all this crazy stuff. Just like once you included flights and hotels and meals and then the events, and then we did private mastermind groups that were really pricey. I don't even want to name some of the prices that we paid on them because they were expensive for us. Like that took all of our ability to be able to do that. But the return now on all of that, and now that it's compounded, has been huge. And I think sometimes you kind of need that. Like I can see early on, we needed somebody. Oh my God, Sam doesn't know the story about Rob Minton telling us we better hire somebody or never to come back. And she's the person. Holy shit, there's a story that involves you, but I never connected the dots. We were paying for this mastermind group. We're going into Ohio and we were complaining like, oh my God, we don't have enough time. Everything, we were crying like, oh my gosh, we can't get what you're saying done. We just can't do it. And he said, didn't you talk about hiring someone to help you out in your business? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, well, did you do it? And we're like, no, we're kind of scared. We don't know if we have enough money to do it. Right. And he's like, listen, don't come back here if you don't do it. So, the next meeting's in 3 months. If you don't do it, you're not welcome back here. And I'm serious. And we left driving home from Ohio, just, I think, scared, like, holy shit, we really like going to these.
That's what I remember being in your car. You were driving. And that's when I was the one saying, I'm like, so like, what are we going to have them do? Like, I just don't get it. And then the other thing, I was like, so
glue sticks, man. Glue sticks.
But the other thing that came to mind was like, we're going to have to pay these people like every week. Like this is this, and I was just like, we have to write this check to this person. I'm like, okay, that seemed like a very big commitment, for sure. At that time. I don't know if you had the same experience the first time you hired someone. I'm like,
but that was Sam.
That was Sam.
Then we crossed paths with you. So I never thought about that was you. But that was because that story has lived in our memories forever. Like, do you remember that time we were so scared? And now looking back, we're like, oh my gosh, what was wrong with us?
Well, she was probably walking in the door too, being like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, who are these guys? And I guess
I think
you just needed any job at that point with whatever stage you were in life.
You knew about us was because of, was it your brother?
Yeah.
Lee?
Yeah. My brother got us connected.
Yeah. Because Lee and I worked together at NetSuite.
Yep.
And that was how.
But how did Lee even know we were looking for someone?
I have no
I probably mentioned it.
I think you may have mentioned it.
Oh, at
Mike
hockey.
was working.
You guys were still playing hockey probably at that time, right?
Oh yeah, and Lee was pretty good. We're gonna have to edit that out. We'll edit that. And I think he was pretty good. Yeah. I'll never forget when I worked with your brother. I'll never forget this because at the time I was a classic regional sales manager. Like classic middle management, and my office was like smaller than this, like I don't know, half this size. Right. And Lee we just started working together, and he came in, and he said, like I'm Lee Gladish, and he started dancing. Like he grabbed his belt buckle and he goes, I'm going to hit my number this month or this quarter, no problem. And he grabbed his belt buckle and he started like dancing in my office.
I'm not.
And I was like, and then actually kind of like, I was like, okay, I know I'm not all there. Like I'm a little, this guy clearly is not all there. I actually believe him. And actually, even though I thought like he's slightly crazy, I go, there's something about this guy. Like, he's probably going to produce. And I think then that quarter, I don't think he produced at all. We can leave that part in. We won't edit that part. But no, Lee's a great guy, and I know he's had a lot of success since then. So we're pumped for him. But then, so Sam, your primary, so Holistic Wellness is still running. HolisticWellness.ca.
Yep.
That's running. You have a team there, which sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. The podcast is running. Yep. How is the podcast a regular thing?
It's every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, a new episode comes out on the podcast. And then for SamanthaGladish.com, that's where people would go to for the business coaching.
Yeah, for anything on the business mentorship side.
Yeah, cool. And I think now that you are doing both worlds, you have a ton of experience because now you have a whole bunch of experience in dealing with people's health issues and now their business stuff.
Totally.
Well, it's nice when you're working with clients that are in the space that you are working in.
Yes.
Right. So like totally. And even the other people you're working with, what they're looking to build out is similar. Yep. Versus if you were looking, working as with a florist trying to get new people in the door. Right. So it's really nice because I know that was our first experience when we were working with some of in the mastermind groups we were in, when we could get feedback or guidance from people that were actually in the industry working with investors doing similar things. Sure. That helped us a lot more than the generic stuff. The generic stuff, you just have to, it still works the same way. It's all the same principles, but you have to mold it more yourself.
For sure.
And when you're starting out, it's like a perfect match, it helps out, right?
Yeah, and the conviction 100%. You must have giving people advice now after going through this and starting your own business through the roof.
For sure. And, and I'm still in it. Like I still have a nutrition business. I don't do the one-to-one coaching anymore. We have coaches who work with our clients and still have online programs and our podcast. And, I've authored a book. Like I feel like all of the things on that side. So I think that a lot of practitioners like just trust that.
Okay, one more question before we wrap up here on the whole mouth breathing thing.
Okay.
Can I not wear one of those things? I just thought about one of those things that goes on your nose that like lifts open your nostrils because maybe like that is a way to cheat.
The nasal strip?
Yeah, maybe the nasal strip will then encourage the nose breathing.
You could totally.
Without the tape over my mouth.
I'll talk to Tom's wife when he goes to bed after he falls asleep. I'm coming in and taping his mouth.
I don't like this. I think if anyone did that to me, I would wake up and be punching you straight in the face within a millisecond. So nobody should ever do that. I think it's not.
No, you can totally try that. But I did my breathwork certification training earlier this year, and we should totally do a breathwork class with all of your.
Oh, really?
With all of your staff. It's the most amazing experience.
Yeah.
We totally should.
Yeah, I've been involved in one.
I've been interested in that actually.
It's like really transformative. Yeah. You just get into like the most deepest state of calm and peace and just activating that parasympathetic nervous system. The delta waves that you get into, like my Aura Ring will tell me that I've had like a 58-minute nap in a breathwork session when I'm actually like intentionally focusing on my breath.
How long's that? How long's the session? Like that, if for
about
in that example. No, in that example, like when your Aura Ring said
that.
Yeah,
it was a full 1 hour class, but the breathwork piece was about 45-ish minutes.
So it sees the breathwork as actual just restorative sleep
because
almost.
Of the delta waves. Yeah.
Wow,
it's really phenomenal. It's really phenomenal. Yeah. So if you want to like...
No, that sounds something like doable. That's another idea.
Let's start there.
Yeah, I think we should start with breath work.
Let's
that sounds
there.
much better than getting duct tape, that Gorilla Tape stuff.
I like the Gorilla Tape.
You do it. Hey, why don't you try it?
I was thinking medical tape.
Do you want to try it?
When you say Gorilla Tape, I'd love to see a Gorilla Tape.
You know that stuff at Home Depot that's so sticky?
Yeah, that's what we should put on.
There is specific tape.
Oh, is there? Oh, okay.
Actually. It's not just any tape.
When you said duct tape,
I feel like it's...
nodded.
No, I was joking. Oh.
Please say you got that.
I feel like it's important.
I totally know. I just assumed it was any tape.
No.
No. Oh, there's special tape.
There is.
Oh, geez. Always learning.
Yep.
Sam, thanks for coming and doing this. The websites are HolisticWellness.ca, SamanthaGladish.com. Anything else you want to head out? Instagram?
Yeah, Holistic Wellness Witch on Instagram. Hang out there a lot. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Sam, thanks so much for doing this. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Cool. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Terms show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.